It looks.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and
Good evening, wherever you are in the world.
welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict Live. So today we're going to be talking about Russia and China partnership and what does it mean for the future of the global order.
You know, before we do that, David, we might want to talk very briefly about important things that have occurred in the last 48 hours, like Harmony OS.
Oh yeah, that has to do with the Huawei's operating system that's been launched. As a matter of fact, now they are expecting that that's going to be the most dominating operating systems in the next 5 years. So this is because Huawei, as we all know, been blacklisted by the US. So they went ahead and reinvented themselves by creating their own operating system. So that's very, very interesting.
You know, you take a good look at Chinese history, and they've got thousands of years of reinventing themselves. It's part of the way they think about things. And so that Huawei and Wang Qingli, of course they're going to reinvent and come back with the best operating system in the world.
Yeah, no, I am certain it's going to be literally a lot of countries going to adopt that particular operating system.
Well, you know, also China is expanding their arsenal. Whoa.
Oh, you're talking about the nuclear aspects of it. Well, this is because of the some sort of U.S. containment policy on China. But that's the way I look at it, Ross, is that that's China's way of letting the United States and the West, for that matter, or the world for that matter, that China is no longer that country back in the 60s or 70s. Now is expanding economically, technologically, but also militarily. And the military expansion, it's part of the equation. Anytime you grow economically, you grow militarily as well. So, and we all know about, and we're gonna release a video soon about China's new H-20.
Oh,
the strategic
stealth plane.
That's correct. The strategic bomber. It's quite an interesting aspect of that.
And the third one, before we jump into our main topic, is China is expanding their Belt and Road Initiative into Afghanistan.
Oh,
Russia failed. The United States failed miserably. And with business as opposed to weapons, they're moving aggressively into Afghanistan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised at that because there have been some talks behind the scenes between China and Afghanistan and Taliban. And the reason why they want to do this, because as we all know, the United States is going to be withdraw officially from Afghanistan by September 11th of this year, hopefully. So China figure out, hey, we may as well just got to deal with the Taliban. But also because Afghanistan is strategically located, it will serve China's interest when it comes down to BRI. And because, you know, as we all know, Pakistan is closer to Afghanistan. And of course, China has some deals with Pakistan regarding the Gwadar port, which I think we're going to need to do a show about that because that is a strategic location. And there is a reason to why China got to deal with Pakistan regarding that. So they figured, we may as well just got to deal with the Taliban, and it's going to pave the way for them. So,
you know, I think it's just wonderful that China has figured out a way through business to control the Taliban.
Yeah. So that's correct, and that's what's going to be, and I am certain they're going to succeed in convincing the Taliban to work with them. So well, before we launch into this, just for you to know, you can ask questions anytime, even during our chat here, because we're going to be addressing this particular topic for about 10-15 minutes. Then I am sure you will have some questions regarding this topic. So, but before we do that, let's first thank you for your support. We thank you for your comments because they're truly creating a debate of sort, and that is a very
great dialogue.
It is very refreshing to know, and I read most of the comments. I'm sure you do too, Ross. And I'm so grateful to all of you because we don't have this nonsense stuff. Yes, you come across once or two. Like I had somebody got upset about the last video we did, but not on YouTube, but it was on LinkedIn. They got upset because we spoke the truth. It's ridiculous, even questioning me if I am a true American. And the guy had no clue what I've done for the United States. So it's sad, but we're not gonna dwell on that. It's you forgive their ignorance. That's the only way to do it. But also we wanted to let you know about our new membership Patreon that we launched. We want to take a shout out at Jim Lee, our newest member.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. And sorry, guys, we are not wearing our merchandise from Patreon because we just ordered it. So it's going to be in about a week or so. So next time we'll have some. But we want you to know about what this membership offers. And there are some good perks involved into that beside the one-on-one conversation, the one-on-one conversation you guys gonna have with us, but also the Q&A. But also we're gonna do for the members at the Change Your World level. We're gonna have some sort of a presentation for you. Those are basically will be pertaining to information we do not discuss on YouTube, as you all know how things are. Those are not classified, by the way, just to let you know. But they are information that is not just available on the media, basically. So that's what it will be. So just to wrap it up, we want to thank you for your support. And if you like our videos and you want to support us, consider the Patreon. Thanks again.
What we're seeing is cooperation between Russia, Vladimir Putin, and China, Xi Jinping, unprecedented in how much cooperation is going on. What's going on here, David?
Well, that's correct, Russ. That rapprochement, if you will, it's because it's a reaction to the United States' failed policies. And what I mean by this is because the U.S. has been pushing too much, too hard against both Russia and China. So both of them, they figured, wait a minute, why don't we join our forces together? Economically, it will be beneficial, and strategically, it will make more sense, and it will change the global order to our favor, because that's what I see it going.
And it's working.
It is. Look no further than what both countries are doing in the Arctic.
With global warming and the Arctic opening up, the amount of investment going in there in terms of the natural resources, in terms of a waterway to connect the East with the West, and the cooperation, it looks like it's magnificent, and it's working.
That's correct.
China and Russia.
That is correct. And as a matter of fact, we just did a show recently about their nuclear cooperation on civilian nuclear technology, that is. However, I am not ruling out the possibility that China and Russia is going to cooperate on the military dimension of the nuclear technology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I won't be surprised, because Russia usually is very far advanced when it comes down to nuclear technology. You don't acquire over 6,000 nuclear warhead just out of thin air.
Right.
So, and I know China's not going that route. However, China now is increasing its nuclear apparatus, and I can see why, because they are getting bigger, of course. As I said, when you grow economically,
you're going to grow militarily.
You're going to expand. That's the norm. We did that back after World War II. We got bigger economically, then we expanded into the military. China is doing the same. But this partnership, just for you to know, it's focusing on some specific geostrategic locations. And I'm going to provide just 3 examples. You look at the Middle East.
Yep.
Okay. You look at Africa.
Yep.
Okay. And you look at Latin America. So,
natural resources and markets. Here it is.
Exactly, right there. So for China and Russia, both of them now are literally influencing the Middle East. Gone the days when the United States used to be the leader in deciding what's going on in the Middle East with the cooperation of its allies. No more. No more. Because now we're seeing who's been making decisions, or I shouldn't use the term making, but rather who's influencing the political outcome.
And we certainly see that China is playing a major role here in that they do business with everybody in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, like we said in the video, they don't care what your religion is. They don't care what your political orientation is. They don't care what your philosophy is, whatever.
They don't care what's going on internally in your country, whether you're abusing people or being nice to them. What they care about is business.
Are you willing to do business with us? And this is why they went ahead and cut a deal with Iran for the $400 billion. They also had a deal with Turkey, even though Turkey is more aligned with Russia as far as military hardware, because they got the S-400
missile
system. That's correct. Speaking of Turkey, just before I forget, just this morning, I came across some information that they discovered massive amount of natural gas under the Black Sea. So you can just see where this is going. So just to go back to the China and Russia, that partnership, and that partnership is going to strengthen, their presence on the global stage, because this is what as I argued in my last book, I remember, I argued that it is of time. I remember did one article back in 2015, and I started arguing that point, and I got a comment that like, oh, that would never happen. China and Russia would never get along. I said, given the history or whatever, I said, I understand your argument. However, what you are missing or you're failing to understand is that this is a strategic partnership. It's going to benefit both of them. And it has so many dimensions to it. One of them is to reshape the global order.
Yes. Vladimir Putin several years ago was truly upset and complained bitterly about China. And one of the things he said is, they buy a plane from us, then they reverse engineer it, and now they've got 100 of them that they made, and it just look exactly like the ones It strikes me that the United States pushed them through sanctions into this alliance.
That's correct. And even with this one, Ross, they are moving into the financial market as well.
Oh.
Remember the video we did about both of them dumping the US dollar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they are realizing, that's another way. If we are to get rid of the strangulation of the US dollar, the best way to do it is get rid of the dollar altogether. In other words, you don't even use the SWIFT system, which I'm familiar. I know you are familiar with the SWIFT system when it comes down to the global transactions. And they realized, why not? Let's just transact directly using our own currency. And given now that China is moving forward with its digital yuan,
some very prominent international economists are saying it's going to happen sooner than later. We expected it to happen in a few years. He said it might happen really rapidly.
That's correct. So now the question that geopolitical analysts are asking, and I'm one of those that have been asking the question, is this partnership is going to be a threat to the U.S.? Because
well, maybe.
You're right. Because can you imagine both countries, China and Russia, with their military strength combined?
Military and economic strength, both.
Because here is the hard truth. I don't think so. The United States, will be able to fight wars on two fronts. The Germans made the mistake. Napoleon made the mistake.
Yes.
What makes us think that we can? And again, we're just talking pragmatically here. What's pragmatic? I just do not see that. As a former military myself, I just do not see the United States fighting two wars on two separate fronts. This goes beyond the nuclear capabilities and all that, but we're going to have to think in terms of, okay, what's pragmatic here? And for China and Russia, it works to their benefit that if they can keep the U.S. outside the Pacific realm altogether. And this is why you see what will be interesting is the upcoming meeting between President Biden and President Putin.
When is that?
It's in June 16 in Switzerland.
But okay, less than 2 weeks.
That's it. And what will be interesting about that is that Russia has some already disclosed information, not the detail of it, but rather it's going to be some bad news for the Americans to hear from. And if I am to guess, a part of it, based on my research that I found, it has to do with the establishment of 20 military units, brand new one, that's going to be deployed to the west of Russia. Poland border, Ukraine,
Oh,
and all
yeah.
that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So we can just see what it means. So that will be bad news for the Americans, basically. So it will be interesting to see what this meeting, what the results of it. And we're gonna do a follow-up, by the way. We're gonna release one video on this. We already did one about just presenting some arguments. And we're gonna do a follow-up after June 16th to see exactly where the negotiations are going and so forth. So the bottom line to it is that both Russia and China partnership makes more sense for them because it's a partnership of necessity. This is not about just convenience. It's a strategic move. Where the question that I've always been asking, and I've been asking that question for a few years now, will that partnership turn into a strategic alliance? And what I mean by strategic alliance is when treaties are signed between the two countries, especially in the defense realm.
And we know those things are fraught with danger. We've seen any number of those kind of alliances lead to tragic outcomes.
That's correct. But at the same time, they do know what's at stake here.
Yeah.
So I am certain, given how cautious Beijing is, given how usually Russia doesn't just jump into policies till they see what's in it for them, which is the norm in every transaction. It's just when you enter into a strategic alliance, is different ball game altogether. Whether they are ready for that or not, I can't answer that right now because I'm not seeing the signs yet. However,
their alliance is relatively new.
It is new, but I do foresee it could pave the way for that. And if it does, that's a game changer. That's a game changer.
It's a very reasonable alliance given sanctions and given the world situation.
Yeah, well, when you end up sanctioning both countries, their best way for them to overcome that is to join forces together. That's one way of doing that.
It's interesting seeing the interview with Putin where he says, yeah, U.S. sanctions, who cares? And he laughs it off.
Well, because they realize, they can circumvent those.
They're doing it pretty successfully.
Yeah, they know how, and no matter how much sanctions you impose on them, there are ways of circumventing the system.
Well, Iran certainly is finding ways.
Well, for sure, given the amount of, which has not been disclosed, by the way, how many companies had to pay the ransom for it.
Oh.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's one of the key things. You add into these dimensions for this partnership is China now with the Huawei developing the operating system, and what will it mean for how they're going to move the markets, global market that is, in their direction per se. Because we always argue the shift of wealth from the West to the East has already taken place.
Right.
So the Asia is going to be, it is the global economic hub. Because where most transactions are. So,
I think there's some real humor with this. I was reading 40 years ago, a Chinese Asian expert, economist, and he said, this is what's coming. He said, because he understood the history of China. At that time, China was in complete shambles.
Yeah.
And really the poor man of the world. And here it is 30, 40 years later, and they're the economic powerhouse of the East, maybe the world.
Maybe the world.
But it's predictable if you know Chinese history.
Yeah, I can go with that. I'm in the process of writing a book about China, and I am learning as much as I can because it's fascinating, and it's a fact that China is no longer the country it used to be back in the 60s.
Oh, not even close.
It's impressive that in such a short amount of time, 35 years is nothing.
One of the most impressive things about this is that we look at a totalitarian state, and look what they did. It defied my logic until I opened my eyes and said, this is just what's going on. Whether I approve their system or not, they have brought all these people out of poverty. They have come from tragic circumstances to being a world leader in 30 years.
That's correct. That's correct. This is reminding me, Ross, of another dimension that we need to talk about just for our viewers to know with this partnership. has to do with the space dimensions
Oh.
as far as space. So, well, we all know Russia has been involved in the space program for quite a long time. As a matter of fact, they were the first. And now China, with the landing on Mars, with the first module of the space station, the permanent in place. So I do foresee that partnership not only is going to be on Earth, it's going to be in space as well. Whether it's going to take military dimension to it in space, I don't know. I don't know at this point. Even though I do believe there will be some. It's because that's part of.
That's just part of the game here.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
As long as there's warmongers out there, China's going to have to respond.
That's correct, and this is why they decided to go ahead with their own space stations. And as a matter of fact, they will be the one to decide which countries to allow. And I am certain that if the cooperation with Russia on Earth, on other aspects, economic and otherwise, I don't see why not. They will not cooperate with them on the on space. So, all right, let us answer some questions here, and we'll move forward. Okay, Ariel. Good to see you, Ariel, as always, and thank you for your support. All right, Ariel, the question is, what about India in all of this? China is a rival, but Russia is still a key partner. That is a good question, given also the tension between China and India over the borders. But yes, Russia is the one sort of exchanging certain technology with India and so forth. But both Russia and China will be very careful as to how they move forward when it comes down to India.
Absolutely,
it's
right.
Because the way I look at it, here is India in the middle, here is Russia, here is China. But they both, China and Russia, have the partnership and friendship, or whatever you want to call it. But in the middle, there is this little tensions over one country. So, well, because both countries understand that India also bow to the United States. So they're going to have to proceed carefully as to how much they can deal with India. Because I remember one particular incident when the United States required or asked India to stop importing oil from Iran. And India obliged. They had no say in the matter. So to Russia and China, they will be thinking in terms, okay, how much do we want to get involved with India? So especially Russia, not China much, because China can overlook India altogether. Given where India's infrastructure and so forth. So, yes, it will be one of those issues that they're going to have to think about.
You know, we see small skirmishes on the borders that they're fighting with sticks and stones.
Yeah.
It doesn't constitute a real nuclear threat.
That's correct. Next question. Beryakov. Thank you, Beryakov, and good to see you as always. Is Ukraine doomed? A few hours ago, Putin announced Nord Stream 2 pipe is completed, as US and NATO also abandoned the dam and no more money for gas transit in Nord Stream 1, while the puppet is incompetent to run the country. Wow. I was aware of the Nord Stream 2 being completed because that was the announcement of it. And yes, Ukraine was, I don't know if I want to use the term stealing money, but they was taking money out of the transits and so forth. Yes, it's going to be a big problem for Ukraine right now. And NATO, because as I said last time I did say it, we did mention it in our video, NATO is not going to risk a war with Russia over Ukraine because it's common sense. Would you want to engage a country with over 6,000 nuclear warheads? I don't think so. So if I am the head of NATO, I will think twice about such an engagement. Doesn't matter what its size. So what you end up doing is you end up giving a lip service to Ukraine to show the world that, we stand by you. But just those are not in what I call consumption of ink. Those are just words. Because the reality on the ground says otherwise.
Yeah.
And this is what I believe one of the surprise. It's going to be in the upcoming meeting between Vladimir Putin and Biden in Geneva on June 16th. Ukraine is going to come up into the conversation, but I don't think so. The West or the United States, for that matter, is going to want to push too hard on that issue, because that's one of Russia's red line also. And this is where
also in the Ukraine, we've seen a whole lot of bad press.
Mhm.
Biden's son, but that's not all. In Europe,
what was in Europe?
Bad reputation for the Ukraine.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's just the idea of the internal dynamics of Ukraine is so complicated. Next one, Hang Tua. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Thank you very much, Hang. Your question. Yes, in Australia, they are beating the war drums, interfering in the affairs of China with Taiwan. They are just talker, but no substance. Well, you got a point there, huh? Because the issue is so complicated, but also the ramification of something like that will be devastating for Australia. Regardless what you hear, yes, the US might end up supporting Australia, but to a degree, because logistically it will be very challenging for the US, because China and Australia, they are neighbors, close door. Logistically, it's favorable to China than it is to the US. So for Australia, it's I didn't quite understand the decision that was made in Canberra way back to launch at China for whatever. It was miscalculated, because they didn't realize that China's gonna push back very, very hard. So yes, they can talk about war drums and so forth, but that's gonna be nothing but rhetoric, no more, no less. Well, what do you think, Russ? I don't see anything.
I don't see it either.
Yeah,
I think some cooler heads are gonna prevail here, because there's money involved, and bravado.
That's correct. Doesn't cut it. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't cut it when billions of dollars are being lost.
Like what we did in the show, we demonstrated how so many businesses, despite what you hear, some businesses are suffering big time in Australia. Next question, Friendly. Thank you very much for your question, and good to have you here. Will Biden be soft on China in the next 2 years? That's an interesting question. I would say the answer for that will be more of a geopolitical answer than anything else. Why? Because on one hand, you want to have a policy that shows we are tough on China, and that policy, that's for domestic consumption here at home. Then you want to have a policy that shows, oh, we can work with China.
Exactly.
So it's gonna be on two separate tracks, but I think China already sees through that. And the way you can tell that is during the first trade talk meeting during the Biden administration that took place in Alaska.
Oh, that one.
In Anchorage, and we did a show on it. I don't know if you get a chance to see it or not. But China didn't hold back. They came forcefully and let the Americans know we're not going to be bullied no matter what. So how President Biden is going to approach China? I would say with kids' gloves, because we all know we need products here in the US that are cheaper. If you push too hard against China, all China needs to do is shut the door.
They got lots of other markets in the world.
And you'll see the prices.
And the Belt and Road Initiative is opening up even more markets.
Exactly. So, or even you look at it from the terms of manufacturing. So, we all talk about manufacturing coming back to the US. Come on, let's be real.
Can't happen with the labor cost.
No, it won't. Next question. Reason. Thank you very much for joining us, Reason, and thanks for your question. Why can't US find a way to work with China to solve the world poverty problems and ensure peace and security of the world? Wow. Wow, I thank you for that question. I really do.
That occupies a lot of our personal conversations when we look at China, who has pulled so many millions of people out of poverty. Now, granted, it didn't put them into fancy houses, but it gave them really decent lives. And we look at China as a role model for how to do that, because they have a plan and they execute the plan, and it's working. And so there is national resolve at the national level.
That's correct, Russ. And this is where international diplomacy comes in. You are country A, I'm country B. Do we butt head, or do we sit down as grown up and diplomatically try to find a happy medium, if you will. And that will be the best approach, in my opinion.
Yes.
So for as to whether it's going to happen, I don't see it happening now. Maybe not.
The policymakers in Washington aren't serving the American people as so much as they're serving the industrial.
Yeah. So I don't see
military
that.
complex.
Yeah. Let alone that China has made very big strides technologically, economically, that it's almost like the U.S. was surprised to see how far China is. So
when I went to China, I was shocked.
Yeah, so I just don't see that happening right now. Things could change later on, maybe the next administration. We don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Right.
It's very hard. All right, one last question here. Let's see. Okay, Yang, good to see you. Okay, Yang. The question is, can you guys do a topic on intellectual theft that the U.S. often accused China? Is there some truth to that? Yeah, that's very the common saying here in the U.S. that China steals intellectual property. Well,
yes and no. Mostly no. Mostly it's just been given to them.
Yeah, it's the reverse engineering part where they are very good at it.
What Russia complained about.
Yeah, it's just the idea of, if you get the engineers and they are willing to spend the time and energy to reverse something, why not? Most countries do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that's because certain technologies can be reversed.
We also see a lot of the technology was freely given.
Yeah.
So they could manufacture products for the United States and the rest of the world.
Yeah. And actually, the United States and China did some exchange on a technology back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some trips by some high officials, including the former Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates.
Yeah.
That was about the exchange of certain type of technology. So China just improved in that. So intellectual, or what we call another term for it, economic espionage. Yeah, most countries engage in those. So as to how China does that, that's, I think, is the reverse engineering. Do we blame them for that? No. If they are able, as I said again, if they have enough engineers are able to do that, then that makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
So, yeah, one more question. So, because, all right, Buryakov, again, publicly known, 25th May, recently, China FM foreign minister visit Moscow to discuss military technical cooperation with Russia. Is this a big thing? It is indeed. As one who've been really reading about the military dimensions on both countries, this is where I see the next step should, as we said earlier, that partnership transit or transform into a strategic alliance. The military dimensions will be part of it, big time. The question is going to be is how far Russia will be willing to share its own technology. Because remember, Russia has really, really some advanced stuff regarding nuclear technology without going into details here. Some stuff that is not reported because of the understanding of how it works. As a matter of fact, just FYI, the stealth technology that when in the United States developed, we have to thank a Russian physicist for that, who was the one into all this. So Russians are they do have some far dimensions on the military technology. As to how much they can share with China, I do not know. I do not know at this point, because there is no alliance yet. It's just a partnership yet. No. So because partnerships can last or partnerships can end, depends how far it goes. But if they ever turn that partnership into a strategic alliance where they will sign treaties of cooperation with the military dimensions into
formidable,
then it will be a game changer. We're talking about global order here. So that's the bottom line to it. So, well, we want to thank you for joining us today. We truly appreciate your commitment. We appreciate your support. We do not take it for granted. And it's because of you. That's where we are today with almost 11,000 subscribers, I guess. And we're still growing, and we couldn't do it without you. So we thank you so much. Until next time.
Stay informed.
Bye-bye.